Ever wonder how that shirt you're wearing actually got to you?
Or like the vegetables you had for dinner.
It's this whole hidden world, right? Like a chain of markets that we rarely ever think about.
Yeah, it really is.
But today we're going deep into the fascinating world of markets, all kinds of markets, from those busy weekly markets to, um, your air-conditioned shopping malls.
We'll uncover how they work, who they benefit, and really just how they shape our everyday lives.
I think that's what's so interesting. It's just how they work seamlessly in the background. We don't even notice how connected we are through these markets.
Definitely.
So let's start with the weekly market. Something I think a lot of us are pretty familiar with. Imagine walking through one, all those vibrant colors and the sounds, the smells.
Red energy.
Yeah, it's an experience you don't really get anywhere else.
It is.
We read about Samir, a clothes seller, who sets up shop at like 6 different weekly markets every week.
Wow. 6.
Yeah. He buys clothes from a larger trader
Yeah.
and brings them straight to his customers at the market.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that, weekly markets often have much lower prices.
Right. No fancy storefronts,
Yeah.
no rent to pay, and usually fewer employees. All of those lower overhead costs mean they can offer better prices to shoppers.
It's not just about the price, though. It's also just the convenience of finding everything you need in one place. And at a bargain, too.
Yeah, you can get your fresh produce, household items, all kinds of things.
All in one spot. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to sacrifice quality either.
Right. And sometimes you get to connect directly with the people who made the product, local producers or artisans.
Yeah, supporting those smaller businesses
Yeah,
creates a sense of community, too.
absolutely.
Now, before we move on, are there any, downsides to weekly markets we should be aware of?
I would say the main one is that the variety might be a bit more limited than what you'd find in a big store. You might not find that specific brand you're looking for or the latest version of something.
That makes sense. You can't have everything.
Right. And another thing to watch out for is that even though you can find some really great deals, the quality can be a bit inconsistent. It's a buyer beware kind of situation. You have to be a savvy shopper and know what to look for.
Right, so you can't just assume everything's top-notch just because it's a good price.
Exactly.
Okay.
Good to know.
Oh, one more thing. A lot of weekly markets are still cash only. So if you're someone who's used to paying with cards, you got to be prepared.
Good reminder. So weekly markets, they offer a unique experience, great deals, a chance to support local businesses.
For sure.
But remember, limited variety, potential quality issues, and yeah, bring cash.
Always good advice.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and look at another familiar shopping destination, the neighborhood shop. We see in our source materials Sujata and Kavita stopping by their local grocery store. It's part of their daily routine. The shopkeeper knows them by name, even offers them credit if they need it.
Yeah, that personal touch makes a big difference.
It really does. That's one of the things I find most interesting about neighborhood shops, that sense of community they foster. It's not just a transaction, it's a relationship built on trust. And knowing the people in your neighborhood.
It's like an extension of their neighborhood, really, a place where you can catch up, maybe hear some local news, or just chat with the shopkeeper.
Exactly.
Plus, it's just incredibly convenient to have a shop so close by for your everyday needs.
Absolutely. That's a huge advantage. And it's important to remember that these shops are often supplied by wholesale traders. They act as kind of a middleman between the bigger producers and these smaller retailers. It's like a whole network, connecting all the different parts of the market.
Makes you wonder how these neighborhood stores are holding up with the rise of online shopping these days. It's so easy to just order everything online.
Right.
Have they been able to keep up?
It's definitely been a challenge for them, but many have found ways to adapt. Some have started offering home delivery or expanded their product range to focus on more specific things.
So it's about finding a niche, really.
Yeah, understanding their local customers and what they want.
It's not just competing on price with the big online stores. It's about offering something they can't.
Exactly.
So just to be clear, when we talk about neighborhood shops, we're talking about those smaller, independently owned stores that are usually right in residential areas, offering that convenience and personal service to their local community.
Right.
All right, ready to move on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, now picture this. Sujata and Kavita decide to check out a shopping mall. Talk about a contrast from the weekly market. They're amazed by the sheer variety of goods. You've got everything, right?
Right.
Air conditioning, all the big brand names. But then they see the prices.
Ouch.
Yeah. Some clothes are like 5 times more expensive than at the weekly market.
It's a different world, that's for sure. Shopping malls are definitely aimed at a different kind of shopper. They want that convenience, they want the brands, they want that, luxurious feel.
And they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah. And let's be honest, the whole atmosphere is designed to make you spend money. The lighting, the music.
The way things are displayed, it's all very strategic.
It is. We even read about studies that show how malls use psychology to influence what people buy.
It's incredible how much thought goes into it.
Right.
I mean, even the placement of certain items,
Mhm.
it all plays a role. And then you got the power of advertising and branding.
Huge. These companies spend a fortune on creating an image, a message that really grabs your attention and ultimately your wallet.
It makes you think about how easily our choices are influenced, even subconsciously.
Yeah, for sure.
So before we move on, let's define what we mean by shopping malls. They're large, enclosed shopping complexes with a wide variety of stores. They usually focus on those big brands and offer a very curated, very specific shopping experience. It's a one-stop shop for almost anything you could want, but it's geared towards people who prioritize convenience and having lots of options. Now, let's talk about something I find really interesting: the chain of markets. It's about tracing the journey of a product from where it starts to, ending up in your shopping bag.
Yeah, like how did it actually get there?
Exactly.
It's a pretty wild ride sometimes.
It is. So let's take a simple example. A plastic item, it starts in a factory. Then it goes to a wholesale trader like Aftab, who we read about. He buys these items in bulk, stores them in his warehouse, and then he sells them to smaller retailers.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the link between the factory and all the different places that sell those plastic items.
Yeah, exactly.
Those retailers could be anyone, right?
Yeah, it could be a street vendor, a small shop owner, someone at a weekly market,
So it goes from factory to Aftab to the weekly market seller.
and then to you.
It's like a chain reaction connecting those who make the product to those who buy it.
And that chain can span huge distances, A product made in one part of the country can end up in a market hundreds of miles away.
It's amazing how it all works together. What are some of the challenges that people face in this chain? I mean, it can't always be smooth sailing, right?
Oh, definitely not. Just think about all the logistics involved, the cost of transporting things, finding places to store them, making sure the quality stays good the whole way. It's complicated.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts.
Definitely.
And how has technology changed the chain of markets? I imagine the internet, mobile apps, all of that must have had a big impact.
Oh, huge impact. Online platforms, apps, they're changing the way traders do business, how they connect, how they negotiate prices, even how they track shipments.
It's like a whole new level of efficiency.
It is. It's making the process faster, cheaper, and in many cases, a lot more transparent.
But does everyone benefit from those advancements? What about those who might not have access to the technology or the resources to adapt?
That's a really important point. While technology can do a lot of good, we have to make sure that everyone has a fair chance to participate and benefit. We need to be mindful of the potential for inequality.
Okay, so just to make sure we're all on the same page, when we say chain of markets, we're talking about that network of producers, traders, and retailers that move goods from where they're made to the people who buy them. Each person in that chain adds value, playing a role in getting the product to the consumer.
Exactly.
Now let's shift our focus to something that's been on my mind throughout this whole conversation:
Okay.
the issue of equality within this system.
It's a big one.
Yeah. We see how markets can create amazing opportunities for people, but those opportunities aren't always distributed fairly.
That's right.
To really understand this, let's go back to some of the markets we've been talking about. Let's start with those bustling weekly markets. What makes them so unique? Who are the sellers? Who are the buyers? What's the vibe?
Okay. Well, one thing that really stands out about weekly markets is how temporary they are,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They pop up, they disappear, then they pop up again somewhere else.
Exactly. And that mobility allows sellers to reach a lot more customers, especially in places where a permanent shop wouldn't make sense. Imagine a small village where there's not enough demand for a store to be open all the time. The weekly market brings those goods and services right to them.
It fills a gap, really.
It does. And the sellers themselves are often small-scale traders, maybe farmers, who bring their products directly to the market, like Samir, the clothes seller we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. They work on smaller margins, relying on selling a lot of product quickly.
Which means they can keep their prices competitive, and that attracts customers who are looking for good value.
So it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
Buyers get affordable goods, sellers get to reach a wider audience. Now let's jump to the other end of the spectrum, the shopping mall.
Talk about a contrast.
Totally different experience, right? It's climate controlled, it's full of brands. You can find almost anything you could possibly want.
Yeah, it's about choice and a certain kind of experience, too.
Exactly. And the sellers there are typically larger, more established businesses, often with multiple locations.
They can afford to invest in their branding, their marketing, creating a very specific shopping environment.
Which of course means higher prices.
Right. Mall shoppers are often looking for convenience, a curated selection of goods, and even a sense of exclusivity. And they're willing to pay a premium for that.
It's interesting how the type of market really shapes the way buyers and sellers interact. It influences what gets sold, the prices, even the whole atmosphere of the place.
It does.
And this brings us back to that question of equality.
Yeah.
In theory, markets are open to everyone. But the reality is that those different entry points offer very different opportunities. And they present different challenges too.
Exactly.
So a small-scale vendor in a weekly market might struggle to compete with the big names in a shopping mall, even if they're selling similar things.
Right. Because it's not just about the product.
It's about the whole package. The brand, the marketing, the location.
Exactly. And that's where the social and economic forces come into play. They create both opportunities and barriers. Understanding those forces is key to understanding how markets really work.
Before we go any further, let's take a moment to sum up what we've learned about weekly markets.
Okay.
They're temporary, they're mobile. They bring essential goods and services to a wider range of communities, often at lower prices.
Right.
They provide a platform for smaller traders, maybe farmers, to reach a lot of customers and contribute to the local economy. And those lower overhead costs allow them to keep their prices low, which is great for buyers.
Absolutely.
Now let's dive a little deeper into the chain of markets.
Okay.
Walk us through how it actually works. Who are the key players? What do they do?
So imagine a farmer growing vegetables. They can't realistically sell their entire harvest directly to consumers. It just wouldn't be practical.
Right. Too much time, too much effort for everyone involved.
Exactly. So that's where the chain of markets comes in. The farmer might sell their produce to a local trader, maybe a cooperative, and then that trader takes the goods to a larger market, often a wholesale market, where it's sold to another set of traders.
Okay, so it's like stepping stones.
Exactly. And those traders often specialize in specific types of products. You'll have vegetable traders, fruit traders, grain traders, and so on.
They each have their own niche?
Yeah. They buy in bulk, acting as the middleman between the farmer and the retailers who will eventually sell those goods to us, the consumers.
So it's a series of transactions, with each step adding value, getting the product closer and closer to our kitchens and homes.
Exactly. And within that chain, you have a whole network of people involved. Transporters, people who run warehouses, people who provide financing. It's quite complex.
Wow. It's like a whole hidden world operating behind the scenes.
It really is.
And it all comes together seamlessly.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing this chain isn't without its challenges.
Oh, of course not. The more links there are in that chain, the higher the final price for the consumer. Each person along the way needs to make a profit, so they add their own markup.
That makes sense.
And that can be a real issue with perishable goods like fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, because the longer it takes to get them to the consumer, the more they could potentially spoil.
Exactly. So by the time those strawberries reach your local supermarket, they might have passed through many hands. And each step adds to the cost and could impact the quality.
So efficiency and transparency are really important.
Absolutely. The smoother the process, the lower the costs, and the better the quality for the consumer.
And that's where technology can play a big role.
Absolutely. We've seen amazing innovations in logistics, supply chain management, even payment systems.
It's incredible how much things have changed.
Yeah.
And those advancements have the potential to reduce waste, make things more traceable.
And hopefully benefit both the producers and the consumers.
But it's crucial to ensure that everyone benefits, that those who are smaller or maybe less tech-savvy aren't left behind.
Couldn't agree more. Technology should be a force for good, not a source of further division.
So just to recap, the chain of markets is this intricate network of producers, traders, and retailers who work together to bring goods to us.
Right.
It involves different stages of production, distribution, and sales, and each person in that chain adds value, plays their part. But the more links in that chain, the higher the final price can be.
Yeah.
And that can be especially impactful with things that can spoil easily.
Right.
Technology is streamlining the process, making it more efficient and transparent.
For sure.
But it's important to make sure that those benefits reach everyone, not just a select few.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this whole conversation has really made me think about the role of government in all of this.
Yeah.
We've talked about different types of markets, this chain that connects everyone, the challenges of equality. But where does the government fit in? What role do they play?
That's a huge question and a really important one. Governments are involved in markets in many ways. They're regulators, setting the rules of the game to ensure fairness and protect consumers.
So things like consumer protection laws, regulations to prevent monopolies, making sure products are safe.
Exactly. Those are all designed to create a level playing field, prevent businesses from taking advantage of people, and make sure that products meet certain standards.
But it's not just about setting rules, right? Governments also have a role in promoting economic growth and development.
Absolutely. Think about investments in infrastructure. Roads, bridges, communication networks. Those are all essential for businesses to function, to transport their goods, to connect with their customers.
And it's not just physical infrastructure either. It's about investing in education, in research, which ultimately leads to a more skilled workforce, more innovation.
It's all connected.
And what about social welfare programs? Things like unemployment benefits, food assistance, healthcare subsidies.
Those are crucial too. They act as a safety net for people who might be struggling in the market economy. They provide a basic level of support, ensure that everyone has a chance to participate, even if they face temporary setbacks.
It sounds like the government has a lot to juggle. They have to balance promoting economic growth with protecting consumers, ensuring fair competition, and providing support for those in need.
It's a constant balancing act, and there are always different opinions on the best approach. Some people believe in a more hands-off approach, letting market forces do their thing. Others think the government should be more involved, addressing inequalities and market failures.
It's a debate that's been going on for a long time.
Definitely.
But it's clear that the government has a huge impact on how markets work and on the lives of everyone who participates in them.
Without a doubt.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's shift our focus to the role of government in the market system. How do their policies influence fairness and equality within this complex web? How do they balance all these different responsibilities? We'll explore all of that and more when we come back.
Welcome back to our deep dive into markets. Last time we were talking about equality within the market system.
Yeah, how it's not always as fair as it could be.
Right. So to understand that better, let's think back to those different types of markets we discussed. Starting with those weekly markets, what sets them apart?
Well, they're temporary, right? Here today, gone tomorrow, pop up somewhere else next week.
You got it. And that actually helps sellers reach more customers, especially in areas where a permanent shop just wouldn't work.
I guess if there's not enough demand to have a shop open all the time.
A weekly market fills that gap, brings those goods and services directly to people.
And the sellers themselves are often smaller scale, right?
Yeah, often. Direct from the source kind of thing.
Like Samir, the clothes seller.
Exactly. Working on smaller margins, relying on volume and quick sales.
Which means they can keep prices low.
And that's a big draw for customers.
Absolutely. Everyone wins.
Yeah.
Buyers get affordable goods. Sellers reach more people. Now, contrast that with a shopping mall.
Oh, night and day.
Right. It's all about choice, brands, that curated experience.
Exactly. Sellers in malls are usually established businesses, maybe with multiple locations.
They can invest in branding, marketing, creating that atmosphere.
All of which comes at a price, of course.
Literally. Mall shoppers are often looking for a certain level of convenience, exclusivity, happy to pay for it.
It's fascinating how the type of market really shapes those buyer-seller interactions.
Absolutely. What gets sold, how much it costs, the whole experience.
And that circles back to equality. Markets, in theory, are open to everyone, but
Different entry points, different opportunities.
different hurdles, too.
So that small vendor at the weekly market might struggle to compete with those big mall brands, even if their product's similar.
Because it's more than just the product, right?
Yeah, the brand, the marketing, the location, all of it factors in.
Social and economic forces create advantages and disadvantages.
Got to understand those to really grasp how markets function. Before we move on, can we recap what we know about weekly markets?
Sure thing. They're temporary, mobile, bringing goods and services to more people, often at lower prices.
And providing a platform for those smaller scale sellers.
Yeah, boosting local economies. Lower costs mean lower prices for shoppers. Win-win.
Great summary. Building on that, let's talk about the chain of markets. How does it all actually work? Who's involved?
Imagine a farmer growing vegetables. They can't sell their entire harvest directly to individuals. It'd be impossible.
Logistically, yeah, a nightmare for everyone.
That's where this chain comes in. The farmer might sell to a local trader, a cooperative, someone who then transports those goods to a larger market.
A wholesale market.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
where it's sold to yet another set of traders.
And I imagine those traders specialize.
Yeah, right. Usually, you'll have your vegetable traders, fruit traders, each with their niche.
So they become the link between the farmer and all the retailers.
Exactly. Buying in bulk, getting those products closer to us, the consumers.
It's a series of transactions, each step bringing the product closer to its final destination.
And there's a whole network within that chain. Transporters, warehouse workers, those providing loans, and of course, the traders themselves.
Wow, so much happening behind the scenes. It's like a well-oiled machine, hopefully.
Hopefully. But it's not without its challenges. The more links in the chain, the higher the final price tends to be.
Because everyone needs to make a profit.
Exactly. And this can be a real problem for perishable goods.
It's like produce. The longer it takes, the more chance of spoilage.
By the time those strawberries reach your supermarket, they've probably been through a lot. Each stop adding cost, potentially impacting quality.
Efficiency and transparency are so important then.
Absolutely. Smoother process, lower costs, better quality for everyone.
Which is where technology comes in.
Big time. Innovations in logistics, supply chain management, even just how we pay.
It's amazing how much it's changing things.
It has the potential to reduce waste, improve traceability, make things better for everyone.
But we have to make sure those benefits reach all the players.
I agree. Technology should be inclusive, not create more division.
So to be clear, when we say chain of markets, we mean that whole network, producers to consumers.
Right. All the steps involved in getting that product to you.
And each step adds value, but also potentially adds cost.
Especially for those perishable items.
Yeah.
And technology is making it more efficient, but we need to ensure those benefits are shared. Now, thinking about all this, it brings up the question of the government's role in all of this.
Absolutely. We've talked about the different markets, the chain, the challenges.
But where does the government fit in?
That's what we need to unpack next. How do their policies influence things?
How do they balance all their responsibilities? Lots to discuss.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into markets. We've covered types of markets, how things get to us, and the whole equality question. Now let's talk government.
Right. Where do they fit in?
Exactly. They wear a lot of hats, don't they?
They do. Regulators, for one. Setting the rules to ensure fairness and protect consumers.
Like consumer protection laws, preventing monopolies, safety standards for products.
All those things. To level the playing field, stop companies taking advantage.
Making sure products are safe and meet quality standards.
But it's not just about rules, right? They're also involved in economic growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about infrastructure investments. Roads, bridges, communication networks. Vital for businesses to function.
And to transport goods, connect with customers, operate efficiently.
Exactly. And then there's investment in education and research. Leads to a more skilled workforce, more innovation.
So important for long-term growth. What about social welfare programs? How do those fit in?
Key point. Things like unemployment benefits, food assistance, healthcare subsidies, they help those who might be struggling. So they have a chance to participate, even with setbacks. Sounds like the government has a lot to balance.
They do. Promoting growth, protecting consumers, ensuring fair competition, and providing support for those who need it.
It's a delicate balance.
It is, and there are always different viewpoints on the best way to do it.
Some want less government intervention, some want more.
Exactly. Let market forces decide versus actively addressing inequalities.
A debate that's been going on forever. But it's clear they have a huge impact on markets and everyone involved.
Absolutely. Now, let's think about those different market types again. How does the government's role play out in those specific settings?
Good point. Let's start with those weekly markets. They seem more informal, less oversight.
True, more autonomy. But the government might still provide things like designated market spaces, sanitation facilities, electricity access.
Basic infrastructure.
Yeah. And they might have licensing for vendors, ensuring some regulation and consumer protection.
So even with that less regulated feel, there's still involvement to ensure some basic standards. What about those neighborhood shops? How does the government impact them?
Zoning regulations play a role, determining where businesses can be located.
Impacts what kind of shops you see in a neighborhood.
Right. Then there's tax policies affecting small businesses, which can help or hurt.
And labor laws to protect workers, ensure fair wages and conditions.
All important factors. So even those independent shops operate within a framework set by the government.
Now shopping malls, those big chains, the government's role seems even bigger.
Absolutely. More regulations, building codes, fire safety, environmental rules, consumer protection, fair trade practices.
Not to mention taxes.
big contributors to government revenue there.
which then funds public services, social programs, everything we talked about. It's all connected.
It really is. Markets and government intertwined, shaping economic outcomes and social well-being.
So as we wrap up, what are the key takeaways about markets and how they impact our lives?
Well, first off, markets are everywhere.
Not just those physical spaces.
It's the whole underlying system connecting us all. Understanding it empowers us to make better choices.
We've seen how diverse they are, each with their own purpose and challenges.
Right. From those pop-up markets to local shops to sprawling malls.
And while markets can be a force for growth and opportunity,
They're not always fair or equitable. That's
Well-
where the government steps in.
setting rules, protecting us, promoting fairness, providing support.
Exactly.
So next time you're shopping, whether it's a local market or a huge online store,
Think about that journey those goods took to get there.
all the people involved, the producers, traders, transporters, shopkeepers,
And think about the government's role in shaping this complex system.
your choices have ripple effects throughout this whole network.
So make them count.
We hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on the world of markets.
Keep exploring, keep questioning.
Your choices matter. Until next time.